And with that, the 2024 Indianapolis Colts season has come to a close. Colts fans, are we happy that it's over?
Yes!
Believe me, I wanted this season to end right after that Broncos game. And as the offseason creeps up for the Indianapolis Colts, we as Colts fans are now wondering what could have been, what should have been, and what can we do to improve the future seasons. And believe me, you're going to see tons of YouTube videos talking about how the Colts have fallen apart, how they have really kind of lost their way. And to be honest, that's 100% true. They have lost their way. I grew up in the Peyton Manning era with Tony Dungy and Adam Vinatieri. Even if you were not from Indianapolis, such as myself, that was just a great team to watch. And you hated playing against them, but you loved rooting for them. So today I'm going to briefly discuss my little rant about what I think is wrong with the Colts and what can we do to improve upon them. And I know I usually do picks and predictions for this channel, but as a Colts fan, I feel like this needs to be established. And with that out of the way, make sure you like and subscribe for more videos such as this, and let's get on with the rest of the show. So to start off here, I have 4 categories that I am going to discuss, in which are all topics in which I think the Colts have lost their way and how they can improve upon them. And the first topic is the head coach. Yes, the head coach. I do not think that Shane Steichen is a terrible coach whatsoever. I do think that he has been given a bad hand under Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, but I think time is running short for him, especially the patience of Colts fans, to see if he can make any improvement. It is very hard to replace the one and only Tony Dungy, who, was the last coach to win a Super Bowl for the Colts. When Tony Dungy retired after the 2008 season, Indianapolis was tasked to find lightning in a bottle once more to see if they can find a coach that can at least match the skill level that was Tony Dungy. And their first pick was Jim Caldwell. And yes, he was not the worst coach and he wasn't the best one. I mean, he did get the Colts back to a Super Bowl where we lost to the Saints. But realistically, that team was built by Tony. Jim just so happened to be taking the front chair. No offense to Jim Caldwell. And after the 2011 season, Jim Caldwell was fired from the Indianapolis Colts, finishing with a 26-22 record, 2 playoff wins and 2 playoff losses. After that, we had Chuck Pagano, where he missed almost his first year as a head coach because he was battling cancer, and thus interim head coach Bruce Arians filled in for him. And even though Chuck Pagano did last longer than Jim Caldwell, his win-to-loss ratio was basically the same, only by 1/100th better. Jim Irsay got impatient with him and then fired him and then replaced him with Frank Reich, who was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off to that season with a Super Bowl win. Now, the only difference that Chuck Pagano had as an advantage over Frank Reich was that Pagano got us into an AFC championship, where we lost miserably, Deflategate, never forget. But Frank Reich was only able to manage one single win in the playoffs, which was a 21-7 win over the Houston Texans. But Frank Reich's tenure only lasted for 4 seasons, and he was fired halfway through the season after an abysmal loss to the New England Patriots. And to everybody's surprise, his replacement for an interim head coach was none other than former Colts center Jeff Saturday, where he in turn had his first career win as a head coach on his very first attempt, and then he lost every single game afterwards. And after that, we have now Shane Steichen, another former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Ironic. But so far, his career as a head coach has had some ups and downs. He's been acquired Anthony Richardson. He's very familiar with the playbook under Jalen Hurts. I feel like he was trying to shoehorn him into that same playbook, and it's not necessarily working as well as he hoped. And as the season has come to a close, he will retain his job for the 2025 season. So he's probably got at least another year or 2 to really prove to Jim Irsay that he can be the next Tony Dungy and bring the Colts back to the promised land. But no offense, Shane, you're no Tony Dungy. That's topic number 1. Now on to the second topic, Chris Ballard. All over social media, we've seen this season that Chris Ballard has been on the hot seat for his job, pretty much all the way up until even 3 years ago. But how did we get here? Well, after the 2009 season, President and General Manager Bill Polian decided to step down from his duties and gave it to his son Chris Polian, where he stayed with there for a few years, being both the General Manager and the VP of Football Operations. And after he stepped down, it went to Ryan Grigson, which as true Colts fans, give us a chill down our spine just hearing that name. Grigson was supposed to be the savior of the Indianapolis Colts. He was supposed to bring in Andrew Luck and all this talent to really bring the Colts back to their old glory days. And what did he do? Absolutely nothing. Oh, he paid Andrew Luck all right. But as far as offensive line talent is concerned, it was too little too late. Andrew Luck suffered multiple injuries throughout his career. He had a reoccurring issue with his shoulder where he had a torn labrum, he had required surgery back in 2017, he had torn cartilage in 2 ribs, he had a lacerated kidney, he had a partial tear of the abdominal muscle, he had at least 1 concussion. Just going through this list, you can tell that the offensive line was just pure crap. He literally missed the whole 2017 season to have comeback player of the year the following year, only to retire 14 days prior to the next season. To paraphrase, he was tired of getting hurt all the time, as well as losing the love of the game of football. When your franchise quarterback says that in a press conference, you know you are doomed to fail. But Grigson was not a part of the team at the time of Andrew Luck's retirement. No, this was under the watch of Chris Ballard, his replacement. To be fair, Chris Ballard was given a bad hand to start. Although a few seasons with Chris Ballard, you can see that he had a good improvement as far as the offensive line. He acquired Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Mark Lewinsky, and a few others. However, the thing is that Andrew Luck had too many injuries prior to all of this that he basically lost that love of the game, which led to his retirement, and then Chris Ballard had to start from scratch. Which segues into my next topic, the quarterback carousel. How many NFL franchises have we seen where they've had the first overall pick, picking a quarterback, only to see them be a bust or not be utilized the right way, traded off, or cut, or whatever reason, only to rinse and repeat and start off yet again? Browns, I'm looking your way.
This is getting out of hand.
But ever since the Andrew Luck retirement, we have been trying to put a band-aid on an open wound by trying to find the next Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning to help save the Colts. Enter the quarterback carousel. A list of quarterbacks who are past their prime, near retirement, traditional backups, or players that were thought to be better, which they weren't. When Andrew Luck retired, Jacoby Brissett was the first one up to bat as he tried to put that team on his shoulders, and yes, he was a decent quarterback, but he was not at all the caliber that Andrew Luck was. And 2019 was the last year Jacoby Brissett started for the Colts. And going into the 2020 season, former LA Charger Philip Rivers signed a 1-year deal with the Indianapolis Colts to be their starting quarterback. And for the season, he was a pretty decent quarterback. We won 11 games, got into the playoffs, where we lost to the Buffalo Bills 24-27. And a little note here, this was the time too our offensive coordinator was Nick Sirianni and our defensive coordinator was Matt Eberflus. Wonder what happened.
You're fired.
But after the elimination of the playoffs, Philip Rivers decided to call it quits and returned back to Alabama to be a high school coach. Enter a new quarterback into the world for the Colts, Carson Wentz.
I'm not Prince Harry?
Now, during the offseason, Carson Wentz was likely going to leave the Eagles, which head coach Frank Reich decided to give him a nod. And I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but he went around Chris Ballard to ask Jim Irsay for the acquisition of Carson Wentz, saying that he was going to save the Colts, in which Jim Irsay agreed and signed him, only to have the 2021 season be the most confusing season for the Indianapolis Colts. We started off the season with 3 straight losses, worked our way back up to get into playoff contention, only to have the last game of the season up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville, only to lose 26-11, which automatically eliminated us from playoff contention. The locker room was quiet, there was a lot of muttering around the league, and many Colts haters and critics were laughing. In what seemed to be a short offseason, the Carson Wentz experiment came to a close. He was traded to the Washington Commanders for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. Soon after that, the Indianapolis Colts signed and acquired former MVP Matt Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons. The idea behind this, he was a veteran quarterback with great knowledge, great skills, he's got great records. If Tom Brady can do it for the Bucs, why can't Matt Ryan do it for the Colts? But not everyone is Tom Brady. We learned that in that Super Bowl. The 2022 season for the Indianapolis Colts and Colts fans was forgetful. They started off their season with a tie and went 4-12 and 1 to finish out the season, coming in 3rd place in our division and acquiring the 4th overall pick in the 2023 draft. Many talks around the locker room as well as around the league stated that Matt Ryan was not happy with Frank Reich whatsoever, stating that they never saw eye to eye with each other on many occasions, only to see Frank Reich lose his job after a 3-5 start. The writing was on the walls and the team executives, the locker room, and the fans all knew it. Something needed to change. When the NFL Combine came down to Indianapolis, the whole football world was looking at 4 different quarterbacks. Bryce Young, who did not participate in the Combine, CJ CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. With Indianapolis having the 4th pick in the 2023 draft, many people thought it was Anthony Richardson or Will Levis to pick, considering Bryce Young and CJ Stroud were likely going to go to either Carolina or Houston. And with the first 2 picks, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud were taken off the board, which led to Anthony Richardson being drafted to the Indianapolis Colts. An athletic beast, fastest 40-yard dash for a quarterback in history, a cannon of an arm, just overall athleticism, but he was raw. He only started a handful of games in both high school and college, so the Indianapolis Colts took a high risk on him and see if they can build him from the ground up. Training camp was exciting for the Indianapolis fans, but there was one thing Anthony Richardson couldn't do to start off with the season, and that is protect himself. In his debut start against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Anthony Richardson ended up having a pretty good show to start off. Expectations were not as high, they just wanted to see what he can do. But late in the 4th quarter, he ended up injuring his knee. And then in week 2 against the Houston Texans, he scored 2 rushing touchdowns and suffered a concussion, only to be sidelined for a week to come back and get injured 2 weeks later against the Tennessee Titans, which ended up being a season-ending separated shoulder. For the rest of the season, he was sidelined and went through rehab. And coming into the next season for 2024, he was asked how did he feel, and he felt like he was better than ever. But the main question on everybody's mind was, will Anthony Richardson stay healthy all 18 weeks? And for much of 2024, there was highs and there were lows. First of all, no concussion for Anthony Richardson, although in week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he did suffer an oblique injury, which sidelined him on week 5 and 6. And due to poor performance with him, as well as tapping out during a game against the Houston Texans, he was for weeks 9 and 10, only to return for a few more games before a back injury stopped him in weeks 17 and 18, where Joe Flacco finished out the season. And that brings us to today. If you look at the trend for the first 2 seasons, yes, Anthony Richardson does have a problem staying healthy throughout all 18 weeks. And the way you watch him play, it's almost like he plays hero ball way too much. And there is a level of maturity as a quarterback from year 1 through year 2, but he needs to improve so much more. He needs to dial in those short throws. He can't bullet the ball all the time, and he needs to study his progression. If you see a dump off at 3rd and 1, don't run it. Give it to the open man. He's got wheels. I'm not taking that away from him. I just hope that he plays smarter going into his 3rd season. He's got plenty of weapons. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Pro Bowl running back Jonathan Taylor. This team has a lot of talent. It doesn't have to always be a one-man show. Which brings me to the final topic for today, the culture of the team. I know I sound like a broken record when I say this, but the Colts from 2004 to 2009 are simply put one of the most entertaining teams ever watched. Peyton Manning was a field general, Edgerrin James or Joseph Adai were just great players to run the ball, Marvin Harrison was just immaculate catching, same thing goes for Reggie Wayne or Dallas Clark going down the field to catch the unthinkable catches without gloves. And then on the defensive side, you had Dwight Freeney or Robert Mathis, who were basically thorns on the side of the opposing quarterbacks. You had your linebackers, Gary Brackett or Cato June or Freddie Keaho, and then your secondary Bob Sanders or Marlon Jackson or Kelvin Hayden. I mean, this team was just stacked. But the best part is that they always seem to have fun, win or lose, but it sure helps when you win a lot of games. When I see this roster right now, I see a shell of itself. I see potential great players who may one day hoist that Lombardi yet again. But right now, as a team collectively, I do not see that. The culture almost feels like it's just settling for mediocrity each and every single year. When your GM is talking to press saying that he likes his guys as a way to divert the question of why he did not pick up many offseason players, when cap space was not an issue, you can already tell that there's not much investment in this team. When you have players lashing out to media and critics about their performance, you can tell professionalism is questionable. When you have an owner that is describing sausage, where he says he doesn't know how to make sausage but knows how to build a football team.
I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage. But I do know how to build a football team.
He's out of his gourd.
Indianapolis Colts for the last decade has been nothing short of the meme of where you see the dog that's sitting in the chair and he's in the house that's on fire, where he just says, "This is fine." And we as Colts fans, as well as everybody who wants to support the team, are just tired of it. Earlier in the video, I did say how I would fix the Colts issues, and I will try and do this in under a minute. First of all, you let go of Chris Ballard. The Colts have seen the playoffs only twice with Chris Ballard, and we have 0 AFC South titles with him. When you cheap out on players and you can't acquire the right weapons, you're doomed as a franchise. Second of all, and they just did this, fire Gus Bradley. 149 missed tackles, ranked 23rd in defense and 30th in pressure, according to PFF. You can't win games when the opposite team is scoring more points than you. So whoever's going to replace Gus Bradley for next season, you have a lot of work. Next, you fix Anthony Richardson. He's running short on time, and the fans are running short on patience when it comes down to him becoming a good quarterback. He needs to secure the ball better, he needs to keep himself healthy, and his accuracy and quarterback skills just need to improve overall. And the last part is, Jim Irsay needs to just be quiet. I'm sorry, I know my net worth is not as much as yours, but you need to listen to your fans. We are so tired of being labeled as mediocre. I don't know how many times I've said that in this video alone, but it's all over ESPN, NFL Network, Fox Sports, I mean, you name it. It's simple as that. And to put this all into summary here, am I a Colts fan till I die? Absolutely, 100%. I love the franchise, I love the team, I love the logo, I love everything about them. But just like an annoying family member, sometimes you just can't stand them for a day, but you still love them regardless. But I want to be proud being a Colts fan yet again. I want to see more banners hung up in Lucas Oil Stadium. I want to see more division titles. I want to see us get back to the Super Bowl. I want this team to succeed. And I feel like sometimes it is just a simple fix. But what I know, I'm just a guy behind a microphone. And that will do it for today. Thank you so much for listening to my little rant. If you have any comments or suggestions about what we should do for the Indianapolis Colts, leave your comment below. Always open for discussion. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos such as this. Until then, have a safe one. Peace.